Bolivia has just begun what could be a 180-degree turn in its modern history. Rodrigo Paz, a senator from the centrist Christian Democratic Party, has been sworn in as president after winning nearly 55% of the vote. But this is more than a simple change in government. The end of nearly 2 decades of domination by the movement for socialism. The MAS party that once carried Evo Morales to power. To grasp the scale of this shift, consider this. MAS has gone from winning a national majority to barely registering support. The left has virtually disappeared from both the Chamber of Deputies and the Senate. Bolivia, once a stronghold of Latin American socialism, now faces one of those historic crossroads that can redefine a nation. The country's in trouble. Bolivia has been trapped in a deep economic and energy crisis. International reserves are at historic lows, gas production is collapsing, and massive subsidies have kept the country afloat but barely. Now, President Paz faces the monumental task of fixing what he calls a devastated economy. They're leaving us inflation, scarcity, debt, and distrust, Paz said. They're leaving us the worst crisis in decades. That model, the one that lived off natural gas, is now running on fumes. In the past, Bolivia was a major energy supplier for South America, exporting huge quantities of natural gas to Argentina and Brazil. Those gas revenues once financed nearly everything. Today, they've nearly vanished. Natural gas makes up only a small fraction of exports, not because of diversification, but because the wells are drying up. Argentina, once a buyer, now sends its own gas through Bolivia's pipelines on the way to Brazil. Bolivia has gone from exporter to transit corridor. Within this context, Paz has sent a message to the world. Welcome to Bolivia. This is a new Bolivia opening itself to the world. Never again an isolated Bolivia, subjected to failed ideologies. His vision is clear open markets, foreign investment, and a break from years of ideological isolation. For a country once defined by populism and protectionism, that's nothing short of revolutionary. The end of the illusion for 2 decades, Bolivia's social contract was simple. The state pays, you consume, and no one asks where the money comes from. Cheap fuel, cheap electricity, price controls, all funded by natural gas. But those days are gone. Gas production has been falling steadily. Proven reserves have dropped dramatically, and exploration has stalled. Any rational government would have slowed spending, diversified the economy, and prepared for the day the wells ran dry. Bolivia didn't. It kept spending like the boom would last forever. Foreign reserves have collapsed, and only a fraction of the country's holdings are actually liquid. Major banks now warn that Bolivia barely has enough reserves to cover basic imports. Inflation has soared to its highest level in generations. The illusion is over. The gas miracle wasn't a model, it was a mirage. A fragile mix of finite resources, fixed exchange rates, and massive subsidies disguised as patriotism. For years, Evo Morales' MAS party sold not just economic benefits but identity. Nationalization, redistribution, and anti-imperialism became symbols of national pride. But once the money ran out, shortages, inflation, and discontent took over. Bolivia, once the proud member of the Chavista axis, now had to face a painful truth. Populism doesn't work when the cash is gone. The past laboratory Rodrigo Paz now faces a near-impossible challenge: reform the country without setting it on fire. His past plan has 3 stages: organize, stabilize, and grow. The first battle is subsidies. The government has spent billions keeping fuel prices artificially low, more than half of what it invests in education. Paz plans a gradual reform, inspired by other nations that managed to reduce subsidies without chaos. 3 price tiers: reduced rates for public transport, intermediate rates for producers, and full liberalization for private vehicles. To soften the blow, there'll be temporary bonuses, loans for transport workers and farmers, and incentives for electric vehicles. Paz has also taken a bold step, allowing private companies to import fuel, ending the state monopoly held by YPFB since hydrocarbons were nationalized. It's a cautious but unprecedented liberalization. Next comes liquidity dollars, without turning to international lenders. Paz wants to raise several billion through a mix of measures: controlled gold sales, dollar-indexed bonds, tax amnesty, and new green bonds backed by solar and lithium projects. If it works, it buys time. If it doesn't, the economy could face default. Lithium, the white gold, and then there's lithium, the so-called white gold. For years, was promised a lithium miracle through opaque deals with foreign powers. But progress stalled amid secrecy and protests. Paz says he'll review contracts without tearing them up. For the first time, independent audits will monitor water use in the Salt Flats region, where water is as precious as the metal beneath it. Handled wisely, lithium could save Bolivia. Mishandled it could be another lost dream. A new diplomatic era. Bolivia's foreign policy is changing fast. Paz is rebuilding relations with the United States and reconnecting with Western allies, while keeping pragmatic ties with China and Brazil. It's a careful balancing act between ideology and pragmatism between Washington and Beijing. But politics at home might be the greater challenge. Though defeated electorally, the left still controls Bolivia's powerful unions and social movements, the transport workers, the coca growers, the peasant federations. One spark a price hike, a subsidy cut in the streets could explode again. Even within the government, tensions are surfacing. Vice President Edmund Lara, a former police officer and social media figure, has already voiced frustration over being sidelined. He represents impatient young voters who want change now. If they lose faith, Paz could face rebellion from within. That's why the president speaks carefully, using medical metaphors. Bolivia is sick, but it can be cured. Subsidies are expired medicine. We need discipline, not austerity. He's trying to change the narrative, make reform sound like healing, not punishment. But the question remains. Can Rodrigo Paz dismantle the rentier state without breaking the fragile social peace that's held Bolivia together? The stakes are high. The last time Bolivia faced an economic crisis of this scale, protests over gas exports left dozens dead and toppled a president. Paz wants to avoid that fate. He's attempting surgical reform without a chainsaw, without chaos. To do that, he needs one thing politicians rarely get: time. For lithium to bring dollars in, time for subsidies to be phased out, time for people to believe the pain will lead somewhere better. Bolivia can no longer buy social peace with money it doesn't have. But for the first time in a generation, it's trying something different, choosing reform over rhetoric and pragmatism over ideology. The question is simple: can it survive the cure? Only time will tell.